Unity minister and author Eric Butterworth wrote a book titled In the Flow of Life. And that's how I've been feeling lately. Just kind of like I'm going along with, almost like I'm in a river being guided by a current or something. And the last 2 weeks, the topic of the Lord's Prayer came up with two different people. And I thought, well, I guess I'm being told to share with you our unique perspective of the Lord's Prayer. And I was going to do that. I'm going to do that this morning. Jesus was a master teacher and the way shower, and teaching us how to pray may well have been perhaps his best lesson. And to prepare for this talk, I drew upon four sources. First, the Unity course called Jesus' Teachings in the Bible. The second is a book by Emmett Fox called The Sermon on the Mount. The third is a book about the Sermon on the Mount by according to Vedanta, by Swami Prabhavananda. Ooh, try to say that one 3 times. And fourth, by Unity classic book, Your Hope of Glory, by Elizabeth Sand Turner. Emmett Fox points out, the great prayer is a compact formula for the development of the soul, and it is a complete system of theology and metaphysics. Perhaps you never thought of it that way. It appears in 2 of the Gospels, Luke and Matthew. And the version found in Matthew is the most popular one, the one we use most often. And historically, scholars believe that it was written about 80 CE, Common Era, what they call now. Used to be AD, now it's CE, Common Era, or about 50 years after Jesus. And he points out, the first thing to say about the prayer is that it is set up in 7 clauses. There's that magical number 7 that we've talked about before. And 7, we know, means a completion of sorts. I mean, we have 7 seas, 7 continents, we've talked about before, 7 notes in a musical scale, forgive 7 times 70 times, 7 sacraments, well, just 7, because that's a completeness, that's what it means. But in practical use, though, the Lord's Prayer has an 8th clause, which says, for thine is the kingdom and the glory and the power. But scholars, that was added later. For example, the King James Matthew has it, but the King James Luke does not. So it was kind of added along the way. So Emmett Fox notes, the 7 clauses are put together with the utmost care, in perfect order and sequence, and they contain everything that is necessary for the nourishment of the soul. There is your wholeness. There is your completeness. So before we start, just let me make one note that the instructions, when Jesus was asked this, he did not say use these exact words. He said, in this manner pray ye. And why is that important? Because it kind of establishes a prayer as a method, as a format that addresses different points that we need to cover. That's what the layout is. And that was one of our questions in the SDS for becoming an LUT. Anyway, let's begin with the first clause, our Father. Fox says, this simple statement in itself constitutes a definite and complete system of theology. Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote, my religion is summed up in the first 2 words of the Lord's Prayer. Let's see what these 2 gentlemen are talking about. First, the clause establishes a relationship between God and man, something like a parent and a child, metaphorically speaking. That brings up the second point of the first clause, which is that it establishes a relationship among all mankind. The clause reads, our Father. Not mine, not yours, our, everyone's. It affirms that we are all equal in the eyes of God. Jesus exemplified this. He did not distinguish between Jews, Gentiles, men, women, Romans, Samaritans. It didn't matter. We were all one to him. And I keep saying it, it's got to be about everybody. Whatever explanation you offer me about this topic that we call God had better include everybody or something is wrong with it, plain and simple. Plain and simple. So the first clause establishes our oneness as foundational. Second clause, which art in heaven. Now, you've heard of the term separation language. We're trying to get away from that. And so normally you say, Our Father, who art in, well, it's not who, it's which. Because a who is like, it totally has that vibration of it's someone, somewhere. So that was just besides the point. Which art in heaven. This clause establishes the nature of God. God as source is not physical, not a being. It is God's nature to be in heaven, that is to say, in the realm of divine mind, as Therese explained in our 3 candles. In that's where God dwells, if you will. God is pure principle, and we say in unity, it is pure beingness, as Meister Eckhart would have said. This represents the transcendent aspect of God and of ourselves in the image and likeness. So it is here in infinite mind and eternal mind that our Father, the source of all being, dwells. And although there is no specific reference to idea, this too is included because that's a natural progression from mind to idea. And this second idea is what we call the I am, the Christ, the archetypal idea. And the idea contains all ideas. The second clause thus establishes the true nature of everything, since God is all there is. We've talked about that. What is not God? Everything is God. All intelligent spiritual energy. Third clause, hallowed be thy name. In the Bible, the name of something means its essential nature or character of that thing. So here it is saying God's name is hallowed. And the question then becomes, well, what does hallowed mean? The word hallowed means holy, whole, wholeness, heal, or healed. In other words, complete and perfect. If we replace the word hallowed, accordingly, then we get oneness, wholeness, be thy name, be thy nature. Divine mind source is perfect and whole in nature. It is pure beingness. Taking a step further, it's also clear anything that comes from this wholeness must too be whole. Scripture makes it very clear that a fountain cannot put forth bitter and sweet water. So by implication, we too are perfect at some level because we are created in that. We are the essence of that. In plain English, Charles Fillmore, Unity co-founder, said, he puts it this way: God, perfection can only create perfection. I used to ask that all the time. How is it that God, being perfect, created this mess? Doesn't that by default kind of make God imperfect in a certain way? I mean, it's a thought. And of course the answer is God did not create this mess. We did. And for that reason, we can undo the mess. And that's our work here, undoing the mess that we've created. So the prayer is unfolding into a complete system of theology and metaphysics. The third clause establishes our wholeness. Fourth clause, thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth. Again, separation language. It's not on earth, because if we were on it, then this is on top. I'm on this. I'm in it. So in earth as it is in heaven. Early on in Unity, I learned that in Aramaic, the correct translation is that kingdom is come, that everything is in the present moment, not a future event, but the kingdom is now, because there's only the present moment, as we know. So the catch with all this wholeness, beingness, is that it is in potential. It exists in potential, awaiting our expression. And that's where we get to play and do our part in expressing this divinity, this wholeness here in earth as it is in heaven. So it's our call. The ball is in our court. That's what we need to do. And the universe is waiting for us. And it's very patient. You know, we go through, like the prodigal son, to make a mess of stuff, and the universe saying, it's okay. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. You know, one of those things. So that's what being free, having freedom and being a co-creator with the universe means, that we do our part. Elizabeth Sam Turner, in the book wrote Your Hope of Glory, she says, heaven is not confined to man's consciousness. It is everywhere present. So she writes, when a man's mind and body are in harmonious relation to divine ideas, His true thoughts flow into the realm of manifestation and bring forth the kingdom in earth as it is in heaven. Emmett Fox says, "Thy kingdom come means that it is our duty to be ever occupied in helping establish the kingdom of heaven and earth." So that is what, again, we are here to do. And the scripture says, go out and spread the good news. Well, that's the good news, that the kingdom of heaven is here, and we are its sales reps. This is our territory. Something like that. So is it possible to align our physicalness with the spiritualness? Not only is it possible, it is our duty to do so. I mean, this goes back to Genesis. When everything was complete, everything was done. And I always used to think, like, why do we talk about heaven on earth or heaven in earth? And that's why. Because that's our duty to do so. So, here we go. The fourth clause established unity's affirmative prayer and method as already done in the mind of God, awaiting our expression. Fifth clause, give us this day our daily bread. And the unity course regarding the Lord's Prayer says, because we are the children of a loving Father, metaphor again, we are entitled to expect source will give us all that we need. And we say all the time about he feeds even the birds of the fields, and everything's covered. So by bread, we're not talking physically like bread or food. There's more to it. It says food, clothing, shelter, means of travel, books, and so on. Above all, we require freedom. And these things are all included under the heading of bread. Maybe it's a translation, but sometimes, give us this day. It sounds like a petition, but that's okay. What we really need to do is to claim it. That's our job. Claim it. Just like our inheritance, to claim it. So we bought into the idea of limitation, and there is none. Another interesting thing about this part is that the reason for the bread symbol or metaphor is that nobody can assimilate food for you. That's the thing to be gotten from that point. Your spiritual journey is a personal journey that you must take. Nobody else can take it for you any more than anybody else can eat for you. It doesn't matter if you're starving and somebody else is eating. That is of no value to you. You must take the journey. And that's why salvation and unity is not about salvation, because that's an external thing. It's about transformation. It's about changing you so you can see how things are. So the kingdom of heaven is within. The fifth clause establishes our divine inheritance. The sixth clause, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Oof. The book refers to this as the turning point of the prayer. Because here before we've been talking about the nature of God, the nature of man, the relationship of God to man as brothers, the abundance of the universe, and the concept that we are whole and complete. Now we get to the part where if everything's good, what's going on? Well, righteous judgment. It says that we live. The answer lies in the clause that it is through forgiveness that we can create the solution to this problem. Sin, as you know, we call error perception. And I like when I read this, it said, sin, this belief in separation, that is sin. The belief in separation. And it is the fall from grace. And I said, oh, that's interesting perspective. Sin is our error belief is the fall from grace. It is us in our judgments. I saw a video of Neil Donald Walsh, and he says, the moment you stop seeing yourself and God as separate, all things will change. That is an interesting point. So forgiveness, we have heard, is for the forgiver. So it is in forgiving that we are set free. We are set free. Clause 7, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us all from evil. Now, this is an interesting one because Emmett Fox says this clause has probably caused more difficulty than any other part of the prayer. Why would God lead us into temptation? What a strange thing to say. But there's more to it because God's not a micromanager. And I came across this writing by Reverend Ed Townley. He's a Unity author, and he writes this thing called Interpret This. And so he talks about this phrase, and he says, the Aramaic phrase is, don't let us remain in temptation. And the word for temptation means unripeness. And I said, oh. So once again, it's getting out of this unripe state of being that we're in. Because for God, the impetus, the flow is always for betterment. So the prayer is for our unripeness. So in summary, the 7 clauses of the prayer's format is this. 1, the first one establishes oneness as foundational. The second one establishes the true nature of everything as spirit. The third clause establishes wholeness. The fourth clause establishes affirmative prayer. The fifth establishes divine inheritance. The sixth establishes the key to being free, forgiveness. And the seventh reminds us, as we keep moving forward, keep unfolding, leave the past, our error thinking, behind. And of course, the eighth is, for thine is the kingdom and the glory, and the power and the glory. And can I have a little music, just a little bit? So I want to take a few moments to reflect all this. This is a lot of stuff, but it's interesting. Take a few moments to reflect upon the words of this powerful prayer and the lesson for today. I want to invite you to a short little journey. If you're comfortable, close your eyes. It's a little journey back to a different place and a different time. Using our power of imagination, I invite you to travel back with me over 2,000 years to Judea, during time of the Master Jesus who walked the earth. It's not far away. In a sense, it's really right here and right now. It is late in the afternoon. The sun has just set. After a long day of following Jesus, spreading the message of love, forgiveness, and healing, the sky is beautifully painted in yellow, orange, red, white, blue streaks everywhere. I'm sure you can see it. Someone has started a campfire, and the wood crackles from the sound of the fire. Picture yourself seated at the circle among the disciples and other friends. You find yourself staring at the fire. You smell the burning wood. You feel the evening breeze. Be right here in this moment, as if you were right there in that place with Jesus. You gaze around the circle, and just as you make eye contact with the Master, listen. Someone says, Rabbi, teach us to pray.
شمبابا برنا روحات قدشا خالها آمين آوند وشميان قداش شماخ تيثي ملكوثاخ نهوي صبياناخ أي كنا دوشميا آقرع أولان لحما سلقان ديومانا وشغلان حوبين وحطاهين أي كنا دعاق حنان شوقا حياوي لا تعلم نسيونا ألا قصان إيشا نطل إلى في ملكوثا حيلا وعشنا غباوث وشيطان وشمية واحدة شمبابا برنا وحف بشرعان آمين آمين.
What a different vibration that is in the Aramaic. And so it is.